All right, welcome to our 200th
Yay!
conversation with Dan.
Okay.
I know, isn't that so cool?
200 years old?
200th episode.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean 200 videos or 200 podcasts, but 200 specific, like, in the can conversations.
How about that?
I know. So I thought it'd be fun for us to take a break, and we're actually going to record right after this our next conversation.
A serious conversation.
Real But for now, I thought it'd be fun to go through like some of our stats and information.
All right, let's hit it.
Yeah. So I was going to ask you first, what do you remember about why we started this in the first place?
I think we felt like some of the offerings that were given to people in churches of Christ and elsewhere were a bit stiff and a bit off-putting in the way they were put out there, and that people would probably like to have something that was kind of easygoing, yet had good biblical content in the format of a discussion. And so we thought, well, we'll try this and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was definitely part of it. And it's funny that that was part of our discussion, because if you go back and watch some of our first videos, we were fairly stiff.
Is the camera on me now or not? And what should I do next?
I think Dan made sure and came to in a suit jacket or a tie or something for
Quit mocking
days.
me.
But it was like we were having that discussion, and at the same time we were doing the sermon series where we were asking our congregation for questions, and there was more questions than we could cover in a sermon series. So it kind of lended together to get this whole thing started.
Yeah, I can't remember hardly any of that except the tie and all that. I get that.
Yeah. Yes. So we started on October 4th of 2017.
Okay.
Yeah. And we started the podcast. For those of you who are our podcast, they can't see me motioning to the camera, but for our podcast listeners, they started in December of 2018. So about a year later, we got that up and running. So
meaning you.
Yeah. Dan does not do the technical behind the scenes work.
I just sit here and talk. That's all I do.
Which is great. That's what I need you here for. Otherwise, it'd be me yammering about my opinions. And you bring something substantive to the conversation.
All right. Now I know he's mocking me. Okay.
No. All right. So some of our top topics.
Yeah.
Things that we've covered the most often in various ways. You want to guess what some of them are?
Why isn't the Bible in chronological order? I bet that's one.
We've done a lot on like study tools, why the Bible is fashioned in different ways. So yeah. Anything else?
About crosses and stuff like that?
No, surprisingly not.
Okay.
We haven't done a lot of those, but we've done a lot about the Lord's Supper. Like, I think going back through and all the ways and means, I think we have talked about the Lord's Supper more than any other topic.
Interesting.
Yeah. So lots of questions have come in over time about that. Second to that, kind of working with each other, is heaven and hell.
The afterlife, eschatology.
Yeah. Angels and demons, we've done a lot on those. But then probably the second largest thing that we've talked about overall has been prayer in various things. Who do we pray to? How do we pray? How is prayer answered?
Does Satan answer prayers to God?
Yeah, that was one.
Yeah.
It was actually our first episode was, do I pester God by praying? So
interesting.
So that was our first episode, and then we got a whole lot of things about prayer from there. And then we've done a lot on baptism and different things, but definitely Lord's Supper and prayer have been our two
biggies,
major topics in various ways. Which this would be a point for plugging those of you who have reached out and wanted the spreadsheet that we keep up with in times past. Obviously, it has expanded. And so if you're someone who wants to know what are all these topics, and we keep track of the scriptures we reference, the keywords that are used in it. So it's a very searchable document.
Okay, so when I go on our YouTube channel and I try to scroll back through them, I can only get to a certain point and then it stops.
Yeah.
And then what do I have to do to get all this stuff?
You have to hit the next arrow button down at the bottom of the page.
Well, I've hit arrow buttons on those lines, but it's a different place.
It's just how you search it and how YouTube is showing it to you. But the easiest way, if you're looking for something very specific, is if you get that spreadsheet, and then you can type in the exact name of that conversation.
Interesting, and it'll bring it up. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. There's also a specific playlist. So if you search for the Conversation with Dan playlist, it's available on the Broadway YouTube channel's front page.
Okay.
And if you click that playlist, it has everything all together.
See,
in
I
one
believe
place.
that has just clarified things for a lot of people, sort of in my category, whatever that might be.
So, funny enough, I'll just give a preview. I was looking at the age groups. The age groups that watch our YouTube channel are pretty evenly spread, like 18 to 20% almost across all age groups, starting at 18 years old. But the 65 plus does edge it out by like 2 percentage points. So even though they may be older and maybe struggling to find some things, they are sticking with us a lot of ways. So we're glad to have the older age
Don't
group
look
here.
down at me and despise me when you say struggling to find some
I'm
things.
not.
Okay.
And anytime you have questions, obviously get in touch. I love answering that sort of thing and walking people through it. So, all right, top views. What do you? Well, you probably know because we've talked about this. But our top viewed video ever was the History of the Church of Christ Part 1.
Really?
Yeah. That I ended up actually unlisting on our YouTube channel because it was such a firestorm of comments and everything.
Maybe we should revisit that and do it in a different way or something.
We might. It was an interesting one because I still think it was a good conversation. And this is something people have asked before.
But you said that I gave the biblical perspective of the actual church in the Bible, and you thought people wanted more of a historical in this land. Where did it come from the pioneers to now, or something like that?
Yeah, it was. I think the question had been asked, and I guess the expected answer from the people that were looking for that and would search out that are looking to be like, okay, this guy,
the Stone Campbell movement, and all that stuff.
Movement, all that history. And so when you were going back and saying this is the apostles establishing and here's all the stuff, it was quite a bit of debate to the point that it was no longer productive for it to be there.
Sure.
And I think some of that was just in the way that we marketed it, presented it, titled it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we may address that one, but it had it had 14,000 views at one point.
Interesting.
And it was taking a lot of my time to moderate the comments.
Yeah.
So we stepped back from that. Funny enough, we did do a part 2 that tried to address the Stone Campbell stuff, and by that point, no one was clicking onto the next video, and
Funny.
It had like 2,000 views on it or something. So if you ever wondered, did we have like something that we have pulled off since then? We've done one other one. That we had the conversation, we thought it was really good, but we saw that it wasn't beneficial to the audience. And so we have pulled down a video every now and again, but that's rare occasion. The next one is the chronological order one you talked about.
Yep.
We've had 7.5 thousand views on that one.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. And for a channel that, like we said, we just passed 200,000 or 2,000 subscribers, and most of our videos average 300 views over the course of a year or something. Again, not huge. To have one that's really reached that audience is really awesome.
Great.
And then the next one is Heaven, Hell, and Paradise, 4,000 views. Lots of people want to know about that stuff.
Let me say again that one of the biggest reasons we do this is, of course, we want to provide good teaching in a format that's easy to listen to, but also share these with your friends who are outside of the church who need to come to the Lord. If they're inquisitive people, if they're people that would watch something like this, you can use these to influence other people, and we really hope that you'll do that.
Yeah. We really do want them to be a teaching tool in more ways than one.
And we want them to be friendly and non-threatening to people who have no knowledge of or experience in the churches of Christ.
Yeah. And honestly, some of our best videos come from discussions that you're having with your friends, and you say, they had this question and I didn't know how to answer it.
Yeah.
And it's a real world practical thing.
Yeah.
I mean, this year alone, here in 2022, we've had some very high performing videos that came directly out of those sort of things because they were very practical. They're the ones, well, it was kind of the tail end of 2021 into this year about can people change?
Yeah.
Do our prayers change people? About struggling faith and spiritual fatigue. A lot of those things have come out of y'all's conversations with us And they
Right.
obviously reach a wider audience because a lot of people are feeling those same things.
Good.
Yeah. So definitely keep that coming. We hope you're sharing with your friends personally. And then if we can do a video to aid that in any way, hey, we're here. We're glad we're down for it. Um, there was one other fun story that I wanted to share out of, like, we have a lot of discussion that happens. People send in lots of comments and questions, and they want to know about idols. They want to know about the immortal soul. The chronological order one keeps coming up. But I think my favorite discussion, do you remember me telling you about our Obadiah video and this discussion on Esau? Oh man, I think there was a solid 3 months where they didn't know they were talking to me, but the channel, we as the discussion, we were called every bad name under the sun, sort of for
Really?
a while, because there's a movement out there that they have a whole thing about Esau and racial things throughout the world.
Hmm.
And so by us giving any grace to the group that they see as Esau, it was the whole thing.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was fun.
Sometimes you step in a cultural hole you didn't even know was out there, huh?
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. We thought that was in the middle of our series. We had taken a break from answering questions, and we were doing like major points from books in the Bible.
Was it Jacob I loved and Esau I have hated and that kind of thing?
Yeah, and then yet there was in Obadiah, you still get a picture of grace being available to all. And so we were discussing, does that include Esau, who we're looking at? And they
Etc.
and they were like, no, nothing exists for them. So in a discussion about just books of the Bible and main points, we found something that we didn't know
You
existed.
never know. That's a keyword search that happened to hit that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Which I changed the keywords a bit after that.
Good.
So, in closing on this,
In closing, finally, now you can get your songbooks.
I'm not going to give an invitation call or anything, but I am going to celebrate you, the audience. Okay, so these are the people actually watching us,
Yeah?
and I want to say thank you to them. And first, I'm going to start with our podcast audience. I actually looked up our follower stuff because sometimes I put that out there and I don't keep up with it as quickly as YouTube. We actually have 189 subscribed followers on our podcast.
Okay.
And the top cities listening to us, shout out to Fort Worth,
How about that?
Atlanta, and Seattle.
Wow. Seattle.
I'd have never guessed.
Go figure.
Yeah. So shout out to Fort Worth, Atlanta, Seattle. If you're listening there, thanks for listening to our podcast. We've had 4 or 5 people leave us a review. We've had lots of people, click stars. So if you're on the podcast, really, when you click those stars, leave us a review. It helps spread even further. So I'm glad to have y'all listening. Glad it helps. I know there's several people here in Paducah that listen on their commutes back and forth. So glad to have them here. Now to our YouTube audience, we thanked y'all for helping us reach 2,000 subscribers recently. Here's a couple of stats. 2/3 of our audience is male. 2/3 of our audience who watch are not subscribed, though.
Hit subscribe. Hit that button. That's all I learned from him. Yeah.
We've trained him well on that one. But like I said earlier, they're evenly spread across all age groups. Usually you have a channel that skews heavily to the young or to the old or different things, and it's a wide spread across there.
Good.
Our main states are Kentucky, Tennessee, and Texas. But North Carolina, you're coming up fast. We've got a growing audience from North Carolina, so glad to have y'all here as well. We function pretty well in a region with our, this kind of southeastern region of the United States, and then we grab some from Oklahoma and Texas as well. So, but North Carolina.
Keep listening.
Yeah, absolutely. We're glad to have y'all here. It is a lot of fun to get the comments on the YouTube and, respond there and get emails back and forth, which, as always, info@broadwaycoc.com is how you can reach us the easiest.
We want to speak God's truth in a way that people can hear and keep the door open to keep them listening. But
Yeah.
we will speak the truth, but we will speak it in love and in respect to other people.
Yeah, and by far the most beneficial on our end of things is when you're watching one of our videos and you go, yeah, but why didn't you talk about, or what about this one scripture? Those are really helpful to us because, even for the two of us, we're not going to have every experience and think of everything. Most of the time our conversations are off the cuff. Sometimes you have a little bit of prep, with a couple of points you want to bring in. So we're not going to cover everything all the time, but we do our best, and y'all help us along the way. So
Very good.
we're very thankful for this nearly 5 years we've done this, but for the 200 videos,
200 in the can.
200 in the can. We've moved from the basement of our building to the library to here in the conference room. We've had good days with our mics and bad days, and y'all stuck with us the whole way through. So
Muchas gracias.
Yeah.
Obrigado.
glad to have you here.
Kamsamnida.
We hope you'll stick around. I was waiting.
Arigato.
I was going. We got a back and forth thing going here. And then our next video, the one we're about to record, is going to be a conversation about what?
The calling. Are we called to preach? Are we called? In what sense are we called?
Yeah.
Why are we the called?
So hopefully you'll join us for that conversation and many more to come. See y'all next time. Well, I almost started. Good morning, everyone. Wait, it's not It's not worship. Okay. My hair looks like who knows what.
The devil. Or Jesus. A much better spot.
Okay, so. Okay. I always wonder if people look and they're like, "Hey, they've been wearing that for several weeks." We don't have a good enough production value to go change clothes.
I look better. I know I look better each time, but he. Oh, I forgot my coffee. That's okay. No, let's be real serious.
We'll be serious to start the new year.
Good morning, brethren.
Well, this will be Instagram. This will be Instagram post for today. I've got it.
Okay. Today we're here to discuss conference room chairs. Did some kind of dance for old King Herod, and it made him so happy that he said, "Oh, I'll just give you half of my kingdom, anything you want." I think that was a dirty dance.
I'm gonna let you roll for a bit. I'll see what things I remember hearing as a kid, and maybe bring some of them up.
The age of miracles has ceased.
We've got someone interrupting us.
Yeah, we have
recording.
Let me say that we have. Would you like to come on the camera? No.
We'll cut that out. I may leave that someone interrupted us.
Okay.
And then we can put the rest on Instagram.